welcome back to Your Hour. Joining me now is Michelle Scales. She is a prevention facilitator at MHA, Mental Health America, South Central Kansas. What do you mean by prevention facilitator?
Well, what we do at MHA, we have a lot of different services that we offer. As a prevention facilitator, we go out within the communities, within the schools, and implement different mentorship programs. These mentorship programs include teaching the kids different life skills, different social and emotional things that we're not technically able to have in society, and we go in and do those different things at MHA.
Well, because everybody needs coping skills.
Absolutely, and we're really big on teaching coping skills, self-control, try to shy away, keep the kids away from bullying, and all of those different things that promote emotional well-being and wellness. Some of the different coping skills that we teach, that's actually what I brought today within these classrooms. And these coping skills work for all ages. The prevention facilitators within the community, whether we're at rec centers, whether we're in 259 schools or within juvenile programs, different at-risk programs, all of these coping skills can be used for all ages. Right now within the world, it's pretty tough out there, and a lot of times our babies are struggling. And so as prevention facilitators, we go in and try to target those areas to help not only the youth, but all of us be better people. One of my favorite sayings is, it's okay to not be okay. And those are the different things that we deal with. And so if you're not okay, yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're here for. There's a stigma around telling people you need help or that you're not mentally able to handle the stressors of today. And we want to get away from those stigmas at mental health.
You know, when it comes to kids, they have a tendency to mimic adult behavior.
Absolutely.
And so as adults, it's really our responsibility to show them how to get along and how to cope and all that. But unfortunately, a lot of the adults don't exhibit those kinds of
Absolutely, right? That's one thing I always say is the kids who are they learning from, right? A lot of times we expect kids just to know these things, but how are they to know them if they're not being taught, right? And then also as parents, we a lot of times we say, do as I say and not as I do. But kids do that. Yeah, absolutely, right? It doesn't matter whether they're 4 or 18. They choose to do the opposite, right? So I think that's where you're absolutely correct on, not only are we wanting the youth to model these things, we also want adults to do the same things.
Yeah, otherwise you can't expect them to pick up on the nuances of human behavior and interactions and relationships. If we're exhibiting really bad examples, that's all they've got.
Absolutely. And that's something that we as prevention facilitators definitely try to target and try to help the well-being, because right now it's chaos right outside. And sometimes dealing with everyday life itself is hard. But then when adults and school and parents are not understanding or not exhibiting those traits, it's kind of as if the youth are just being left out there to fend for themselves. So we teach it to all ages. We go into the community. That could be your rec centers, your boys and girls clubs, and those things that, or it could be that some parents are at work, right, and they don't have time to teach these things. And I used to be a school teacher, and I always say, you never really know who your kids are when you're not around them.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, at most of my kids' conferences, the teacher would be telling me all the wonderful things that my kid was doing in class, and I would say, why don't you send the same kid home that I did for you?
But that's a plus, though. At least they're behaved outside of doors. I always say the same thing. I have all daughters, and I say, hey, inside the house, they fight like cats and dogs, but hey, when they get outside, they
know
together.
Better.
Yeah, that works for me.
So what are some of the, some of these are real simple.
Absolutely.
Like breathe deep and slow. And I know that a lot of times when people are stressed, it really does help just to
It really
take
does.
some time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think people really understand how much a deep breath can do.
Yeah.
As far as slowing down your brain, making you feel okay. It's just a deep breath makes us understand and put our nervous system at ease, right? Because otherwise we're tensing up, we're overwhelmed, anxiety, and then we use the alphabet, right? And this is what I have here is the alphabet of coping skills, and this. We try to teach the kids whatever emotion, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether they're angry, different methods to be able to relate to and keep them from being impulsive or reactive.
Yeah.
We try to teach them the difference between reacting versus responding. And so what we use here is A to Z, and these work for any age. Something as simple as breathing deep and slow, something as simple as C, counting to 100 or 10. Another one on here that's my favorite is listening to music or nature. A lot of times we don't understand the calming in the music, right? Well, depending on the music, right?
Yeah, that's true. This is true.
Yes, we want to make sure it's the right music, right? Something that's going to calm us. But that's one of my favorite ones. Also, another one that my kids in elementary love to use is run those laps. When they're angry, a lot of times you'll see kids stumping and they're upset, right? And it's just because we don't know how to get out this energy. And I think in this new generation, we struggle a lot with expressing those emotions. And so we try to teach them all different aspects, whichever ones they can relate to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, some of my kids may not run across the field. They may just want to push the wall, and that's another one on here. Kick a ball. We teach them to understand their feelings so that they understand who they are. I always tell my mentees, you got to understand who you are before the world teaches you who you are not.
Yeah.
Right? So we're really big on helping the youth and our clientele understand who they are and manage those emotions using different coping skills.
Yeah. And I think those are important skills to have all through life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like you said, right, many adults don't even exhibit these,
Right.
right? And that's why we try to make it can be used for anything. I mean, for any age, right? And it's something as simple as A to Z. And I think if you think about the ABCs and you think about those 26 letters, you can correlate and tie those together, then you'll remember those coping skills, right? And we usually have them picked like maybe 3 or 5 on here because a lot of times this is not going to be automatic, right?
Yeah.
They have to train themselves to.
Michelle, thanks for joining us.